Shail. I couldn't be happier to have you on today. How are you?
Great, Crystal. Good to see you as well.
Oh my gosh, it's so great to talk to you. I know we've talked a couple times recently about a concept that you feel very passionate about and that you're taking head on in terms of data being a capital business asset. And I'd love for you to talk us through that a little bit. I know you've shared with me McDonald's as a great example, so maybe you can just give me your perspective and if you'd like, share a little bit about McDonald's as well.
As brick and mortar companies become more and more competitive against their digital native counterparts, they need to essentially reinvent themselves using data, what we call data driven reinvention. And a key way to do that is to really start treating data as the new capital, just the way they treat financial, human, and intellectual capital. To propel the organization forward, they need to treat data as a strategic asset as well. What does that really entail? It entails you to, number one, have a comprehensive data strategy, which is a strategy that actually dovetails your business goals into a technology and a data strategy. You need to then build a data and AI platform, a data foundation that enables that data strategy. And equally as important is to have data governance and data management processes to make sure that this data lake doesn't become a data swamp, for example, or you are continuing to raise the quality of your data as well. Last but not least is the fact that you need to have a very strong foundation of culture and data literacy. You need to have a data culture as well. And McDonald's is a great example of that data culture. This initiative from McDonald's came from the very top, where they realized that for them to compete effectively against the trends in the industry, for example, food delivery services, companies that were able to do that gained competitive share against them very quickly. And that kind of woke them up. And they realized that they need to go beyond, they need to leapfrog the competition and really use data as a strategic asset to do things such as personalizing menus, doing geofencing to make sure that they can serve their customers as they're approaching with hot, burgers, if you will, or fresh burgers. And at the same time, making sure that they can ensure the supply chain, um, the fairness in the supply chain as well. And they use analytics to do all that. And at the very basic basis of it was the data foundation that they built, enabled by a data culture and data literacy throughout the organization.
I love when you talk about that story. I think there's so many different elements in it, but I don't find it to be unique in terms of the fact that a lot of companies are struggling with the same thing and looking for those opportunities. A couple things that you said in there almost went to what happens if you don't do this, and that data lake, and things can actually become risky and very confusing. And maybe I call it this this data landfill if it's not properly managed. And so I'm just curious, with so much value and so much opportunity, why do you think things end up in that state, or where companies end up at a point of risk? I guess it's the opposite of that story you just told, because I feel like a lot of people are struggling with that. Why do you think that is?
I think it comes down to two fundamental things in our experience. One is a lack of a comprehensive enterprise-wide top-down data strategy. And if you don't have the right data strategy, which actually encompasses a lot of things, so it's not just to make sure that your data strategy and your technology strategy is aligned with your business strategy, but you also have a top-down culture, and which means that you have data literacy, you have data governance, you have the right tools, and you're making sure that there is data citizenship built in, because if you don't have the right quality of data that you can trust, nobody's going to use the data. If you don't have the right culture, you could have the best algorithms, but they're never going to see the light of day. So we see this as the primary reason is the lack of a very comprehensive data strategy, and the other being a lack of commitment from the executives for a data culture, because culture starts at the top. And those are the two primary reasons as to why we see companies not doing as well as they can.
I think it's important that you talk about it being something that's pervasive. It goes throughout the organization, and something that's really set at a place where it's not an option. It's a must-have, and it's part of the. It sounds like, culture. This is where you see the best in class. Do you believe this is something that can happen all at once, or do you believe this is something that has a gradual kind of momentum building? What have you seen in terms of best in class?
Yeah, so I see gradual progress in this. So, for example, if you look at 2012, only 12% of the organizations had CDOs. Today, that number is somewhere in the 70%. And by 2025, it'll be 90%. And that to me is a sign of an executive commitment to have a data champion in the organization. And also, if as you see, the role of CDOs is evolving as well over time, where they were mostly hired in a defensive role for data, what I call deal with data. And now I see them as offensive as well, which is what I call lead with data. So I'm seeing a gradual change, gradual evolution and progress in corporations becoming more data driven. The one trend that has led to an acceleration in this change is COVID, because COVID exposed corporations' lack of agility for not being in the cloud. And so corporations are now in a hurry to get into the or onto the cloud. And one of the things that we're seeing as they go to the cloud is that data is becoming one of the most important states that they need to migrate to the cloud. And as they migrate their data to the cloud, they're looking to modernize the data as well, because they know this is going to be key for them to enable the analytics that they need to deal with future situations, the black swans like this pandemic, if you will,
Yeah.
where they need to use analytics to really analyze and reconfigure their supply chains very quickly. And therefore, the data needs to be in the cloud and it needs to be modernized to use the latest tools in the cloud as well.
Well, if now doesn't point to the supply chain challenges, I was just talking about that a moment earlier. I don't know what will. And I think the point of view that you take on data as an asset is such a strong one, and it has such strong conviction. It's one of the many reasons that Shail, I value our partnership, and I value the alignment that we have in data and how important it is. But you even go as far as saying that you believe one day it'll be an asset that's reported in the balance sheet and reflected in market cap. And thank you. I think that's right on. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about why you think that position will be, and why you feel so strongly about that.
So, I think companies get valued on how well they manage their assets, whether it is financial assets or people assets. And increasingly, as data becomes a means for competition, where companies compete on analytics, I think the likes of Wall Street will realize that companies need to be differentiated from each other based on the way they acquire this asset, they refine this asset and use this asset, and also protect this asset as well. Just the way they are judged on how well they are acquiring, their financial assets and how they grow and refine those assets as well. So I believe very firmly that I think one day there will be a measurement in whether it is a balance sheet or some other ways where companies get valued based on how well they treat data, how well they lead with data.
Well, I love that, and I feel strongly that I don't think we're at a point of return on that. I think there is no place but forward in terms of that kind of thinking being further expressed and realized, because I don't think we're going back to the day where people thought that they didn't need data or they could just keep it in lots of different places in their organization. So the way that you're working on this at Accenture is extremely valuable, and I couldn't appreciate more you sharing your thoughts with us and working on this, because it is a matter of just time. It's not a matter of if, Shail, it's a matter of when all of this starts to take place, my friend. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your points of view. They complement and they are directly in line with the way that we see the importance of data. And funny enough, Shail, one day data will be measured, my friend. The very thing that measures everything else will have a measurement for it, right? So
You got it.
thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate it.